It's come to my attention that some of you out there don't know what an atheist actually is, often confusing us with agnostics or just plain getting it wrong. So let me set the record straight right here and now. The agnostic looks at the evidence and goes, gee, I don't know. This is inconclusive. I'm not really sure. Based on this, there might be a God, there might not. I just can't tell. The atheist, however, looks at the evidence and goes, this evidence does not hold up under scrutiny. I see absolutely no reason to believe in a God because that premise is unsupported by the evidence. The position of the atheist is not necessarily there is absolutely no God whatsoever, and never can be one. Now, that might be an atheist position, and it often is, but it's perfectly valid to say that you simply have not been convinced that there is a God or that there even might be a God. But you can still be open to new data that shows there is, and even with all of that hemming and hawing, you can still be considered an atheist. Atheism is just a position of not believing, of not being convinced. It is not a state of denial or refusal to believe. That's it, just unbelief. A stronger denial is not necessary to be an atheist. I say this because many theist types have tried really hard to force the position on us that we have to know absolutely everything there is to know about this universe to be able to deny that there is a God. They know that's an untenable, unrealistic position, which is why they attempt to strawman us in this way. But that's not what atheism is. So, my fellow atheists, do not fall for this trap. When they try to assign you this position, tell them that atheism is simply a position of seeing no reason to believe in a God, not a denial that one exists for sure. I mean, think about it. A person who has never heard of the concept of God is an atheist. They have no good reason to believe in a God. They don't even know the idea exists. They don't deny God exists. It's a non-issue. And they are, by definition, an atheist. This is also why atheism is not a religion. You can't make a group out of this kind of thinking because there are so many ways to come to atheism, and nothing to unify atheists the way there is for religious people. So when you theist types start arguing against atheism, make sure you know what you're actually arguing against, because to hear some of you tell it, we atheists are something other than what we actually are. Thank you.
Are you brainwashed? You probably say no, but are you sure about that? Most people get their beliefs and their ideals instilled in them from their childhood. This is an absolute fact. I mean, if I grew up in India, I'd probably be Hindu. If I grew up in Ireland, I'd probably be Catholic. If I grew up in Detroit, I'd probably be a Red Wings fan. But I didn't. I grew up in San Jose, and sure enough, I love the Sharks. But it doesn't end at sports or religion. It goes on with everything, and I mean everything. By the time people reach their adulthood, they pretty much have it implanted in their head of what the opposition looks like to every argument they have. I mean, to a conservative, this is exactly what a liberal looks like. And to a liberal, this is what a conservative looks like. To a creationist, this is what an atheist looks like. To an atheist, this is what a creationist looks like. To a country boy, this is what a city slicker looks like. To a city slicker, this is what a country boy looks like. To a vegetarian, this is what a meat eater looks like. To a meat eater, this is what a vegetarian looks like. To an animal rights activist, this is what a hunter looks like. To a hunter, this is what an animal rights activist looks like. To an environmentalist, this is what big business looks like. To big business, this is what an environmentalist looks like. I think you get the idea. And as long as we have these mental images in our mind of the opposition, it'll be much harder to gain common ground as people. Because it takes a brave individual to change the way they've been brought up to think.
You like my picture? Guess what it is? Actually, it's the Earth, just minus a few billion gallons of water. It's quite interesting to look at things in a different way, isn't it? Or it is, if you're not religious. Imagine what the world around you would be like right now if you were 2,000 years in the future, and for all those 2,000 years there had been no religion whatsoever. Imagine the advances made in art, music, literature, all flowing from a shared love of this beautiful world. Technologies that mean our bodies don't need to grow old or decay from disease. Political systems based on practicality and the golden rule. The invention of things for which, as yet, we don't even have names or concepts. The ability for a child to grow and live its whole life without once thinking he or she is dirty and sinful, flawed from birth and destined for judgment. A world where you don't have to look over your shoulder for the bogeyman. A veritable paradise on earth, and an actual possibility if we all put our backs into it. And as I take the last puff on my imaginary pipe, my question to you is this. What do you think's causing those Christians and Muslims over there to get so red-faced and angry? Is it that we've dared to imagine an earth without the need for a heaven? Or is it that we haven't left room for a hell?
It seems to me the species Homo sapiens carries the chutzpah gene. To think they are the purpose of the universe when they only just arrived on the scene. What's even worse, they bear a curse of believing they're the only form of life to never die and go on living somewhere high up in the sky.
Somewhere high up in the sky.
So why don't bees go to heaven and trees go to heaven? Amoeba, krill and fleas go to heaven. It's not surprising that they're not arising, 'cause man created God. This grain of sand upon an infinite beach had been supporting life for trillions of spins. Then along came humans who started assuming that this was where it begins. So profoundly naive, they began to perceive these primates were the only ones to never die and go on living somewhere high up in the sky.
Somewhere high up in the sky.
So why don't worms go to heaven and germs go to heaven? Spiders, snakes and sperms go to heaven. It's quite expected that they're not resurrected, 'cause man created God. If man created Zeus and the god of the sun, if man created Shiva and the god of Abraham, from all of life, why should the only one saved be the species worst behaved? Well, that's because that same species, Homo sapiens, carries the chutzpah gene. To think they are the purpose of the universe when they only just arrived on the scene. What's even worse, they bear a curse of believing they're the only form of life to never die and go on living somewhere high up in the sky.
Somewhere high up in the sky.
So why don't whales go to heaven and snails go to heaven? Orangutans and quail go to heaven. They don't think twice about paradise because man created God. So why don't bees go to heaven and trees go to heaven? Amoeba, krill and fleas go to heaven. It's not surprising that they're not arising, 'cause man created God. So why don't worms go to heaven and germs go to heaven? Spiders, snakes and sperms go to heaven. It's quite expected that they're not resurrected, 'cause man created God. So why don't bees go to heaven and trees go to heaven? Amoeba, krill and fleas go to heaven.
No one would have believed, in the first years of the 21st century, that human affairs were still being run by the old-time worlds of faith. No one could have dreamed we were still being scrutinized, as someone with a microscope judges creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. Few men even considered the possibility of religion after Darwin and Nietzsche. And yet, across the gulf of reason, minds immeasurably inferior to ours regarded this earth with envious eyes. And slowly and surely, they drew their plans against us.